Hello and welcome back to our series of lectures about the respiratory system. In this video, we're going to be talking about airway resistance. Okay, so since our airways are tubes, I would like to start this discussion by reviewing how these various factors affect resistance in a tube. Okay, so take a moment to think about this, see if you can remember how resistance changes with the viscosity of the fluid, with the length of the tube, and with the radius of the tube. So go ahead, take a moment to think about that, hit pause if you need to. Okay, so hopefully you remember that as the viscosity goes up, resistance goes up. In this case, since we're talking about airways, the fluid that we're talking about is air, okay? As length goes up, resistance is going to go up. And as radius goes up, resistance is going to go down, right? And these concepts are embodied in this mathematical relationship called Poiseuille's law, okay? But right now, what I'd like you to do is consider this question. Looking at these factors, viscosity, length, radius, which of these factors are likely to change in our airways? So think about that. Hit pause if you need to, again. So think about that. Okay, so this table from your book, table 17.2, shows us the factors that are going to affect airway resistance and which of those factors are likely to change, right? So looking at the table, the length of the system doesn't change, right? Our tubes are going to stay the same length. So that's not going to be a thing that's going to affect our airway resistance, really, okay? The viscosity of the air, for the most part, is the same. It can change a little bit based on humidity and altitude, but for the most part, the viscosity of the air is not going to have much of an effect on the resistance in our airways, okay? So the main thing that's going to affect resistance in our airways is their diameter or their radius, whichever way you want to think about it, okay? So let's talk about the things that can affect the diameter of our airways, right? So in our upper airways, such as the trachea and the bronchi, we could effectively reduce our diameter by having a physical obstruction there, such as mucus or like a grape or something, okay? But the main place where we're going to be adjusting the resistance of our airways is going to be the bronchioles, okay? So we're going to be constricting or dilating our bronchioles in order to control the resistance in our airways. Bronchoconstriction and bronchodilation can be mediated by a variety of factors, but before I reveal them to you, I would like to tell you that one of those factors is the autonomic nervous system. And I want you to consider this question. What would you expect from the autonomic nervous system? Or to be more specific, which branch of the autonomic nervous system would you expect to trigger bronchoconstriction? Which branch would you expect to trigger bronchodilation? So take a moment to think about that. Okay, so hopefully you figured out the parasympathetic nervous system is going to constrict the bronchioles. So think about resting and digesting. If you're resting and digesting, you don't need to be bringing in a ton of air into your lungs. So you're going to bronchoconstrict, okay? And then your sympathetic nervous system is going to mediate bronchodilation, right? So if you're running away from a lion, I have not forgotten about that example. If you're running away from a lion, you want to open up your airways so that you can maximize that movement of air into and out of your lungs, okay? So that's the epinephrine right here. As you can see, we have some other factors also that are going to mediate bronchoconstriction and bronchodilation, okay? I also just want to point out, Again, that it's the bronchioles that are the site of the bronchoconstriction and bronchodilation. Remember that we have smooth muscle on our bronchial walls, and that's going to allow them to change their radius in order to affect resistance. And then I also want to reiterate this point right here that the autonomic nervous system it's going to affect the bronchioles, it's going to affect our airway resistance, but it's not going to control breathing rate. So remember, breathing rate is controlled by skeletal muscles that are under voluntary control for the most part. Okay, so when the autonomic nervous system has an effect on our ventilation, it's going to be via the bronchioles.